Shalom, shalom. Hello. We're here for our Saturday night secret sermon. This is our Secret Teachings of Jesus episode where I delve into the Gnostic Gospels. So recently we have been delving into the Gospel of Philip. And basically the format of this gospel is that it's like all these little portions of text, and they're just these isolated tidbits, and they're very cryptic, and so they're meant to be meditated upon and mulled over. Before this, we covered the secret book of James, and that was more scene-oriented and dialogue-driven, which was a lot of fun. We got to explore some character development there, so it was a good time. But you can find these other episodes on my channel on the Secret Teachings of Jesus playlist. So basically I just got really curious and interested in wanting to study the other gospels, and I didn't know when I would have time to do that and when I would make myself do it. So I thought we would make it like a weekly segment together. And I think that this is probably the most favored and beloved of all of the content. So it seems people just give a lot of feedback on Secret Teachings of Jesus. People of all walks of life, you'd be surprised. Okay, so tonight's portion is called Fall and Return to Fullness. Oh, I do like to give a caveat. I'm not an expert. I didn't go to theology school. I don't even know if that's the right way to say it. That's how unprofessional I am. But I am just a generally interested seeker and a nerd about this stuff and read a lot about these things, or just read them in general. And I'm a Kabbalah student, so that gives me some of my reference points. And with no further ado, I will read this portion couple of times through. It'll be awkward. It'll get a little bit better, and then we'll unpack each line, and I'll give you guys basically the downloads that I'm getting in the moment, what's coming through. Okay, the portion is called Fall and Return to Fullness. Before Christ, some came from a realm they could not re-enter, and they went to a place they could not yet leave. Then Christ came. Those who went in, he brought out. And those who went out, he brought in. Okay, so fall and return to fullness. Let's read it again. Before Christ, some came from a realm they could not re-enter. And they went to a place they could not yet leave. Then Christ came, and those who went in, he brought out. And those who went out, he brought in. There's a hooting owl outside. So, this goes back to the Garden of Eden. This is referencing probably the fall. Oh, well, yeah, the fall, obviously, of Adam and Eve. So before Christ, you know what? Before we go any further, it's time to grab chart. I was already ready. Chart was coming. Okay, so the Garden of Eden actually was in this realm here that we call Yesod. The sacral chakra is associated with this spherot here, this dimension. Down here, Malchut, the kingdom, this is the material world. This is the manifest reality that we find ourselves in our flesh suits in, moving and having our being. But we are multidimensional beings. We have our flesh, we have our consciousness, we have our soul, we have our spirit, we have our heart, we've got our mind, we've got the detached observer. There's just so many layers of us, right? And there's so many layers and dimensions of reality. And so in case you do not know what we're looking at here, this is the tree of life. This is important because in the Garden of Eden, there was the tree of life, but then there was also the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So this is the tree of life. And this is the material world here. And so the tree of life is a map of all the dimensions of reality, all of the like governing forces of reality, the different aspects of the Godhead, and it's a blueprint of the human soul. Okay. So, all the things in the world can be categorized into associations with these 10 dimensions. So, back to the story. So, here is the material world where we live, and we have to toil for our wheat and bread. But up here in Yesod, this is the foundation. This is where the Garden of Eden was. This is the non-physical. This is the astral realm where the souls pass through to come into the physical. And so in this realm, it's like it's the closest to physicalized as it gets. And then it is like from Earth, from the, well, not just Earth, but like the whole multiverse reality, material reality. It's the closest non-physical realm that we butt up against. This is like a metropolitan of spiritual comings and goings. So in this world here, the Garden of Eden existed, and Adam and Eve were created at like their soul level. They were light bodies. And before they ate of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, they were the tree, or the garden was in this realm. And so they could look at food and get the energy from it and not even need to eat it. Like it was just like everything was in harmony, like the animals got along and everything just was like everlasting, and there was no death and there was no suffering and everything was perfect. And it was after the fall. And so let's break that down. So Adam and Eve, they literally did not eat an apple, or maybe they did, but the eating of the fruit, what it really was that Adam and Eve had sex too soon before they were fully cooked. Like they needed to wait until midnight that first day, or that day that they had been created, which would have been Shabbat. And so they did not they did not wait until midnight. They did not wait until Shabbat. And so they revealed this light that was too powerful because the divine masculine soul, part of the soul, and the divine feminine part of the soul weren't fully developed in their wholeness yet, in separation. And so to come together and like bind those two energies, it reveals this like level of light that was too powerful for their vessel to fully process. That sort of bliss without this phenomenon known as bread of shame. When we receive what we have not earned, or something that we have received that we've not built the vessel for, so there's no appreciation there, or like we have like we didn't build the vessel, we didn't make an effort, we received before we had the capacity to understand, we received something that we only had a passive desire for, like all kinds of things that can create bread of shame. It's like if a parent keeps like spoiling their child, eventually the child like doesn't respect the parent, and they resent like all the things that they've been given, and they're not appreciative, and they don't value anything. And that's an example of bread of shame. People who win the lottery and then like squander their winnings, like that is bread of shame. It's like this like self-destruction, or like this dark energy around this chaos that comes around receiving something that you can't appreciate, or something that you didn't earn, or something that there was no process into getting. You just received it, and then there's like chaos attached to it. So they had bread of shame. And so this is really interesting. It was not the eating of the apple or the original sin that caused Adam and Eve to fall. They were still in the garden, but they grew shame. And so when they were in the garden, they were in like their total fullness and their total connection with the Creator. They had complete like they could I don't know if they could see the Creator, but they could perceive the Creator and have like direct contact with the Creator, like direct, like full connection. And so from this place, they had the full connection. There was no suffering because they saw the full light of the Creator, right? But now they were starting to feel shame. And so they went and hid. And God found them in the garden and he was like, why are you hiding? And I think it's like they lied or something. Like they were like, the snake tricked us and we thought we realized we were naked. And like God was like, who told you were naked? Because they had put on clothes. Well, that was the moment where they started feeling shame and they felt separate from the Creator. They wanted to separate or like close off from the Creator and not receive that light. It was like, that's what separated them. That was what the fall happened, because it was the ego separating from a state of total like egolessness, right? So we were originally completely illuminated, enlightened, in a bosom of paradise. And then we felt shame. And it was the shame that birthed the ego, the idea that separated us from that total bliss, that total fulfillment, that total union with God. And so it was the flesh that we put on, and we were brought into this physical world, this physical kingdom, where we had to toil and feel pain and suffer and go through a process in order to remember who we were, to reascend back up the tree in our consciousness, but through a process. So originally, Adam and Eve, when they were in this bosom here, represented the original first soul was Adam. He's the father of all mankind. He's the first soul that we all came out of. And so every soul split off from Adam and Eve. It's all, that's why there's like soul groups and soul families and soul contracts. And it's like, that's why like you might have like crossover like memories of past life memories and things, like, because all the souls that have ever been came from originally the two. So they just keep getting split and fragmented the more people that there are, right? So souls of all mankind, we all possess, like we all have inherited this original sin, this one original sin of shame that separated us. And now we all have ego, and we all have to go through this process of remembering who we are. And so it's through this process. So when we fell, it's like we were given that we had this density, these layers of darkness that concealed our inner light, like a veil. It veiled it from our consciousness. And so we didn't remember who we were anymore. We were separate at that point from our divinity, and we had to refine that again. So when we go through a process, we go deep in and we start to transform and transmute all of those layers of density and negativity that we've started building up over a lifetime and over lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes. The soul gathers like this. You keep taking the soul through different incarnations. And there's like these ongoing like melodramas playing out lifetime after lifetime that you cycle through these lessons, right? And you try to progress. And so your soul has all these assignments. It's called the Tikkune, right? And so the right side column is this column of mercy, and the left-hand column is the column of judgment and severity. And the central column is the neutral column, but this is the column of consciousness, right? These are the columns of process. So as we go through this process where we bring our vices into virtuous balance, and we elevate the fallen parts of our psyche and personality and our soul and our heart, then we begin to ascend up the tree again in consciousness. And so up here, this Yesod level, this is like prophecy, this is like Buddha. Up here in Tiferet, this is the Christ center, this is Christ consciousness, this is the Messiah, Mashiach energy, the Redeemer. And so this is in the heart chakra. This is the sacral chakra, right? So it's associated with the astral realm, with astrology, like the astrological governing forces, those causal forces of the universe, your nightly dreams. If you've ever heard of like remote viewing and like the men who stare at goats, like the psyops like portion of the military, they fucking in this zone, right? Like there's a lot of like malicious characters in this area, this realm too. So it's not all heavenly beings. Some of these entities in here are like nothing to fuck around with. It can be, demons too. So we have this realm here that used to be where the garden was, the Garden of Eden, and it's still there to a certain degree. And I think that this is also where a certain level of limbo, like maybe like I remember hearing about Abraham's bosom growing up. And the way it was explained to me was like before Jesus came and was given as a sacrifice that opened up all of these pathways and brought all of these energies into a cross section where they were broken down and then reintegrated and like the temperance card, how it like the cups are like pouring it all together, like integration, like it's all redeemed and brought back as one here in oneness. The vessel is broken, but then redeemed and brought back as a whole. So the Christ consciousness is here. Okay. Oh, and so when Christ was sacrificed on the cross, when Christ died on the cross, that opened up this portal for the souls to be able to come up into a higher kingdom after the physical life, right? So we were opened the gates to the kingdom of heaven. But the kingdom of heaven is also something that can be accessed here in the material world, but it has to do with our inner fulfillment and our inner peace and our inner bliss. And so for a time before Christ came and revolutionized like Judaism and beliefs at the time as they were, there was this realm called Abraham's bosom that people couldn't go, like they couldn't ascend as high as like the kingdom of heaven yet. The Christ that Christ opened up for us, but there was like this other realm, it was like a limbo called Abraham's bosom. And so there's like layers to when these passages are talking about he brought us out and brought us in. So in a way, it's like it's talking about the metaphysical ins and outs of where people are organized and where they go and where the waiting periods are. And in a way, it's how we're delivered in our consciousness and our waking, manifestation here in the physical as well. So having talked about all that, I like to give the illustration of has anybody seen the movie Barbie? Was it just Barbie? I can't remember, but like the big Barbie movie that just came out. I love this movie. If you haven't seen it, watch it thinking about it this way now. And if you have seen it, go back and watch it again and think about it this way now. But in Barbie world, it's just like this Garden of Eden where Barbie gets up and she like rises out of bed and she goes and stands in the shower and she's like, this is great. And the water's not even on. She's just like, oh, I feel so clean. Then she gets out and then she goes and sits like in front of her breakfast and it's just like these plastic waffles and she's like, this is so great. And yeah. And that, oh, I'm so full. And she never ate any of it, but she just fills up on the energy. And then like everyone's happy and everybody gets along and everybody's equal and everybody's, their own thing too. And it's just like everything is harmonious and functional until fear enters Barbie, and guilt and shame and like these heavy, dark emotions, which cause her to have to go through a process. And she even goes and like visits a hermit on a hill, right? The weird Barbie. And she's got the call to adventure. And so she has to go down to earth and go on a process to save this woman who she's attached to. It's like the woman who owns her as the Barbie. And so it's like the higher self going to like help the earthly self like rediscover who they really are inside. It's just like so genius. I love that movie for this like amazing metaphor. And I would love to know if the writers knew what they were doing, or if it was just like one of those times where like art just comes through spontaneously at like a soul level, and you're just like, it's like channeled. You're just like not conscious or cognizant of it. It's just like, there it is. Whoop, there it is. Okay, so Tree of Life. Let's read the passage again. Fall and return to fullness. Before Christ, some came from a realm they could not re-enter. So we fell from the garden, and we couldn't get back to the garden until we could like transmute, alchemize that bread of shame in the density and dark emotions that we've all been given in this life. Not just emotions, but just like the parts of our soul that are like that, the darkness in the universe. It's like that's our rent for being here in this realm. It's the only reason we're here in this realm, is to like go through the process of elevating our souls, elevating the sparks of light that we lost from the original sin, plus all of the compound interest of the sins of everyone forever, and but just your own. So your own plus Adam's. So we are only here, the only point of being in the flesh suits is so that we can go through this process of elevating our souls and recapturing those sparks of light that we lost to the other side, and that we, continuously work in keeping the scales, hopefully in balance. So yes, here, earth, here, the bosom of the Garden of Eden. So before Christ came, some came from a realm they could not re-enter, and they went to a place they could not yet leave. And so when we fell, we came from a place that we could not re-enter, and then we came to a place that we could not leave. So it's like we are here in this, like, we are bound by our flesh. We cannot leave this realm until we have finished our process. Like when we die, and we're like, are we going to heaven yet? It's like maybe for a minute, but you're still going back. We can't leave this. Not until we're redeemed, not until we're saved. Like maybe being saved by Christ allows us to bypass like reincarnation. I don't know. Who knows? I don't remember my other lifetimes except for in slivers and in hunches, but like, I don't know. Maybe that's what it means. But I think that it does deliver. It certainly redeems the heart, and it saves the heart, and it saves the soul from going to the other place for sure. But I'm not sure that means that we don't come back and go through the processes and again and again and again until we elevate our consciousness. I don't think you just get like a golden ticket and get to bypass everything. Like, I mean, the process of being reincarnated and continuing to have to come back in the flesh suit is like, it's like you're not... You haven't been left, you haven't been given up on. You still have a chance. You're still in the process. You're still on the way. And maybe ultimately you get to go no matter what. But as long as there's time and thy kingdom is still here, it's like you got to keep coming back and doing the process work. Now, I remember my Kabbalah teacher one time saying we do have a limit on our number of lives that we're incarnated. Like everybody has the same number, but I can't remember what he said. Or maybe he like alluded to it, but he wouldn't say. So what if Phyllis was dread or like worried? No, I'm already worried. Okay. Okay. So before Christ, some came from a realm they could not re-enter, and they went to a place they could not yet leave. Then Christ came. Those who went in, he brought out. So those who went out, he brought in. So those who went in, he brought out. Now, one, immediately thinks of brought out of Egypt, right? Everything, every holiday, every celebration, every feast, every fast, it's like there's a remembrance of being brought out of Egypt built into that feast. There's like preludes to it beforehand. It's like everything circles back. It either has to do with being brought out of Egypt or like correcting the sin of Adam originally in the Garden of Eden, or both. Like everything is like basically just like circling back to, and then it's like cycling through every year. So those who went in, he brought out. Now, Christ is all about, he's the ruler of the heart. And so it's when we go deep in the heart and we go deep into that inner temple, into the Holy of Holies, that we are brought out of Egypt. That's where we find our liberation. But the Holy of Holies, the innermost concealed, the innermost veiled parts of the heart, the unconscious, is guarded by a garden of thorns full of snakes and scorpions. And so in order to get into that fertile, still, silent darkness, one must traverse thorns and threats and unpleasantries that most people don't want to deal with. They don't want to go through this process. They don't want to sit with that pain. They don't want to sit in their own silence. And they don't even want the silence enough they don't value the silence enough and what's there in order to go through the pain to get there. And even but those who do, they may be too frightened off by the thorns, So it's a deep place to go. And Jesus never wanted passive followers. He wanted disciples. He wanted people taking on the yoke of Christ consciousness. It was like, think about what I'm saying. Like, don't just go Beatlemania over me as Jesus and like that's what gets you into heaven. That's not the point. The point is that you listen to the words I'm saying and they take root in you and they do something to liberate you from darkness, from the depths of the layers of darkness that have grown over our hearts and our souls and our inner light. He's trying to liberate us from that and break it all open. And so it takes our like robust participation and determination to do that work. And it takes us bringing the sacrifice to Jerusalem, reference to the inner temple, the bridal chamber episodes from the last few episodes. Not just sacrificing where we find ourselves, but taking the initiative to go there and volunteer yourself to carry the cross through the 12 stations, to pick up the cross and carry it. It's like you sacrifice yourself. So before Christ, some came from a realm they could not re-enter, and they went to a place they could not yet leave. And then Christ came. Those who went in, he brought out. And so when you go into your heart and you do this work where it's like you let go to a degree that like nothing can be, like you can't be controlled by anything or any illusion. You're just like, I am certain in the Creator. Like the Creator's got it. And you just detach. And you're like, great if yes, great if no. It's just like neither here nor there, but you just have this like deep abiding sense of peace inside and inner rest and bliss. And that's what it means. Like he brought you out of Egypt. He helps deliver you from the things that had complete control over you in your life, or that held you down in life, or that held you back, kept you addicted and bound and a slave to something. Like he like that, meeting that Christ consciousness gives you such liberation that you're like, I'm kind of liberated. I'm free. I don't, like, come what may, like I'll be fine. You know, it's like you're not holding on to those attachments anymore. So those who went in, he brought out. So those who went into their hearts, he brought out of Egypt. And those who went out, he brought in. And so another thing Christ talks about is, if a sheep were to wander off from the flock, even just one, the shepherd would go after that sheep and make sure and bring it back. And so he's saying that those who have fallen from their fullness, Christ is there to bring them back to their fullness. Like, hey, like you might have gone out, but I'm bringing you back in. Those who have gone in, I'm going to bring you out of Egypt. And those who have gone out of the bosom of fullness, who have fallen out of this cleaving to the Creator, you've fallen out of the light, then I will help you be brought back in to the fullness. Come and start to think about, let the words that I'm saying be planted like seeds in your heart, and let them grow into like a vine that produces more vines with hardy roots. Fall and return to fullness. Before Christ, some came from a realm they could not re-enter, and they went to a place they could not yet leave. Then Christ came, and those who went in, he brought out, and those who went out, he brought in. So those who fell out of the kingdom, out of the garden, he's going to bring back in. All right, through the path of Christ consciousness. All right, you guys, Exodus, movement of the people. Job people. All right, y'all. I will see y'all tomorrow for our weekly energy oracle forecast, where we will take a look at the week ahead and see what kind of energy and kind of spiritual weather we will be living and moving and having our being in. Peace be with you. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video and you got something out of it, then please give it a like. Subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications to be notified of when I drop content. Like the videos, comment, share them. Anything that you do helps these messages get out to other people who need them. So you watching a video and taking an action on it actually makes a positive difference in someone else's life.